Hello, my dear YouTube friends, and welcome back. Today is Saturday, and you know what Saturday is by now? It is Fairy Tale Day. Welcome. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm happy to see you here. And if you're back, welcome back. I hope you will enjoy this fairy tale. As always, it is from Hans Christian Andersen, and the reason I've chosen him to begin with is that he is a Danish author and fairy tale writer. And since I'm from Denmark, it's kind of obvious. Sorry, I had to crack. As always, Hans Christian Andersen has he wants us to think about his writing, and he has a morale to the stories. And also, these aren't, cutesy Disney fairy tale endings. Most of his fairy tales ends rather, I don't know, not unpleasant, all of them, but not all of them are happy after. Oh my God, I'm sorry. But they're not happy. Happy ever after. There it was. Sorry. So yeah. Let's get into it. As always, I'm gonna be looking down because the fairy tale is on my phone. But do whatever you want to while I'm reading Diamond Paint. Take a walk, listen with your kids, but do explain to them that this isn't Disney, okay? Knit, I don't know, treat it like a podcast. And let's get started. This one is called The Bishop of Borglum and His Warriors. Our scene is laid in northern Jutland in the so-called Wild Moor. We hear what is called the Wester Woo Woo, the peculiar roar of the North Sea as it breaks against the western coast of Jutland. It rolls and thunders with a sound that penetrates for miles into the land. And we are quite near the roaring. Before us rises a great mound of sand, a mountain we have long seen and towards which we are wending our way, driving slowly along through the deep sand. On this mountain of sand is a lofty old building, the convent of Borglum. In one of its wings, the larger one, there is still a church, and at this convent we now arrive in the late evening hour. But the weather is clear in the bright June night around us, and the eye can range far, far over the field and moor to the Bay of Aalborg, over heath and meadow, and far across the deep blue sea. Now we are there, and roll past between barns and other farm buildings, and at the left of the gate we turn aside to the old castle farm, where the lime trees stand in line along the walls, and sheltered from the wind and weather, grow so luxuriantly that their twigs and leaves almost conceal the windows. We mount the winding staircase of stone and march through the long passage under the heavy roof beams. The wind moans very strangely here, both within and without. It is hardly known how, but the people say, yes, people say a great many things when they are frightened or want to frighten others. They say that the old dead choirmen slide silently past us into the church, where mass is sung. They can be heard in the rushing of the storm, and their singing brings up a strangest thought in the hearers, through the old times into which we carried back. On the coast a ship is stranded, and the bishop's warriors are there, and spare not those whom the sea has spared. The sea washes away the blood that has flown from the cloven skulls. The stranded gods belong to the bishop, and there is a store of goods. Let's try it again. The stranded goods belong to the bishop, and there is a store of goods here. The sea cast up tubs and barrels filled with costly wine for the convent cellar, and in the convent is already good store of beer and meat. There is plenty in the kitchen, dead game and poultry, hams and sausages, and fat fish swim in the ponds without. The Bishop of Borglum is a mighty lord. He has great possessions, but still he longs for more. Everything must bow before the mighty Olaf Glub. His rich cousin Thailand is dead, and his widow is to have the rich inheritance. But how comes it that one relationship is always harder toward another than even strangers would be? The widow's husband has possessed all Thailand, with the exception of the church property. Her son was not at home. In his boyhood he had already started on a journey, for his desire was to see foreign lands and strange people. For years there has been no news of him. Perhaps he had been long laid in the grave, and would never come back to his home to rule where his mother then ruled. "What has a woman to do with rule?" said the bishop. He summoned the widow before a law court, but what did he gain thereby? The widow had never been disobedient to the law, and was strong in her just right. "Bishop Olaf of Borglum, what dost thou propose? What writest thou on yonder smooth parchment, sealing it with thy seal, and entrusting it to the horsemen and servants to ride away, far away to the city of the Pope? It is the time of falling leaves and of stranded ships, and soon icy winter will come." Twice had icy winter returned before the bishop welcomed the horsemen and servants back to their home. They came from Rome with a pal decree, a ban or bull against the widow who had dared to offend the pious bishop. "Cursed be she and all that belongs to her. Cursed be she and all that belongs to her. Let her be expelled from the congregation and the church. Let no man stretch forth a helping hand to her, and let friends and relations avoid her as a plague and a pestilence." "What will not bend must break," said the Bishop of Borglum, "and all forsake the widow, but she holds fast to her God. He is her helper and defender. Only one servant only, an old maid, remained faithful to her, and with the old servant the widow herself followed the plough, and the crop grew, although the land had been cursed by the Pope and by the bishop. Thou child of perdition, I will yet carry out my purpose," cried the Bishop of Borglum. "Now I will lay the hand of the Pope upon thee, to summon thee before the tribunal that shall condemn thee." Then did the widow yoke the last 2 oxen that remained to her to a wagon, and mounted up on the wagon with her whole servant, and travelled away across the heath out the Danish land. As a stranger she came into a foreign country, where a strange tongue was spoken, and where new customs prevailed. Farther and farther she journeyed, to where green hills rise into mountains, and the vine clothes the sides. Strange merchants drive by her, and they look anxiously after their wagon laden with merchandise. They fear an attack from the armed followers of the robber knights. The two poor women in their humble vehicle, drawn by 2 black oxen, traveled fearlessly through the dangerous sunken road and through the darksome forest. And now they were in Franconia, and there met them a stalwart knight with a train of 12 armed followers. He paused, gazed at the strange vehicle, and questioned the women as to the goal of their journey and the place whence they came. Then one of them mentioned Thailand in Denmark, and spoke of her sorrows, of her woes, which were soon to cease, for so divine providence had willed it. For the stranger knight in the widow's son. For the stranger knight is the widow's son. He seized her hand, he embraced her, and the mother wept. For years she had not been able to weep, but had only bitten her lip till the blood started. It is the time of falling leaves and of stranded ships, and soon will icy winter come. The sea rolled wine tubs to the shore for the bishop's cellar. In the kitchen the deer roasted on the spit in the spit before the fire. At Borglum it was warm and cheerful in the heated rooms, while cold winter raged without when a piece of news was brought to the bishop. Jens Glob of Thailand has come back and his mother with him. Jens Glob later complained against the bishop and summoned him before the temporal and the spiritual court. That will avail him little, said the bishop. Best leave off Thai efforts, night, Jens. Again, it is the time of falling leaves and stranded ships. Icy winter comes again, and the white bees are warming and sting the traveler's face till they melt. Keen weather today, say the people as they step in. Jens Glob stands so deeply wrapped in thoughts that he sings the skirt of his white garment. Thou Borglum bishop, he exclaimed, I shall subdue thee after all. Under the shield of the Pope, the law cannot reach thee, but Jens Glob shall reach thee. Then he writes a letter to his brother-in-law, Olaf Hase in Sellingland, and prays that night to meet him on Christmas Eve at Mass in the church at Weidberg. The bishop himself is to read the Mass and consequently will journey from Borglum to Thailand, and this is known to Jens Glob. Moorland and meadow are covered with ice and snow. The marsh will bear horse and rider. The bishop with his priest and armed men, they ride the shortest way through the waving reeds where the wind moans sadly. Blow thy brazen trumpet, thou trumpeter clad in foxskin. It sounds merrily in the clear air. So they ride over the heath and moorland, over what is the garden of Fata Morgana in the hot summer, through, now icy, like all the country, towards the church of Weidberg. The wind is blowing, his trumpet too, blowing it harder and harder. He blows up a storm, a terrible storm, that increases more and more. Toward the church they ride as fast as they may through the storm. The church stands firm, but the storm careers on over field and moorland, over land and sea. Borglum's bishop reaches the church, but Olaf Hase will scarce do so. However hard he may ride, he journeys with his warriors on the farther side of the bay, in order that he may help Jens Glob, now that the bishop is to be summoned before the judgment seat out of highest. The church is the judgment hall. The altar is the council table. The lights burn clear in the heavy brass candelabra. The storm reaches out the accusations and the sentence, roaming in the air over moor and heath, and over the rolling waters. No ferry boat can sail over the bay in such weather as this. Olaf Hase makes halt at Otterword. There he dismisses his warriors, presents them with their horses and harness, and gives them leave to ride home, and greets his wife. He intends to risk his life alone in the roaring waters, but they are to bear witness for him that it is not his fault if Jens Glob stands without reinforcement in the church at Weidberg. The faithful warriors will not leave him, but follow him out into the deep waters. 10 of them are carried away, but Olaf Hase and 2 of the youngest men reach the farther side. They have still 4 miles to ride. It is past midnight. It is Christmas. The wind has abated. The church is lighted up. The gleaming radiance shines through the window frames and pours out over the meadow and heath. The Mass has long been finished. Silence reigns in the church, and the wax is heard dropping from the candles to the stone pavement. And now Olaf Hase arrives. In the forecourt, Jens Glob greets him kindly and says, I have just made an agreement with the bishop. Say it though so, replied Olaf Hase, then neither does nor the bishop shall quit his church alive. And the sword leaps from the scabbard, and Olaf Hase deals a blow that makes the panel of the church door which Jens Globe hastily closes between them, fly in fragments. Hold, brother! First hear what the agreement was that I made. I have slain the bishop and his warriors and priests. They will have no word more to say in the matter, nor will I speak again of all the wrong that my mother has endured. The long wicks of the altar lights glimmer red, but there is a redder gleam upon the pavement, where the bishop lies with cloven skull and his dead warriors around him, in the quiet of the holy Christmas night. And 4 days afterwards the bell tolled for a funeral in the convent of Borglum. The murdered bishop and the slain warriors and priests are displayed under a black canopy, surrounded by candelabra decked with crape. There lies the dead man in the black cloak wrought with silver, the crosier in the powerless hands that was once so mighty. The incense rises in clouds, and the monks chant the funeral hymn. It sounds like a wail. It sounds like a sentence of wrath and condemnation that must be heard far over the land, carried by the wind, sung by the wind. The wail that sometimes is silent but never dies. Forever again it rises in song, singing even into our own time this legend of the Bishop of Borglum and his hard nephew. It is heard in the dark night by the frightened husbandman driving by in the heavy sandy road past the convent of Borglum. It is heard by the sleepless listener in the thickly walled rooms at Borglum. And not only to the ear of superstition is the sighing and the tread of hurrying feet audible in the long echoing passages leading to the convent door that has long been locked. The door still seems to open, and the lights seem to flame in the brazen candlesticks. The fragrance of incense arises. The church gleams in its ancient splendor, and the monks sing and say the mass over the slain bishop, who lies there in the black silver embroidered mantle, with the crosier in his powerless hand, and on his pale, proud forehead gleams the red wound like fire, and there burn the worldly mind and the wicked thoughts. Sink down into his grave, into oblivion, ye terrible shaves of the times of old. Hark to the raging of the angry wind, sounding above the rolling sea. A storm approaches without, calling aloud for human lives. The sea has not put on a new minds with a new time. This night it is a horrible pit to devour up lives, and tomorrow perhaps it may be a glassy mirror, even as in the old times that we have buried. Sleep sweetly if thou canst sleep. Now it is morning. The new times flings sunshine into the room. The wind still keeps up mightily. A wreck is announced, as in the old times. During the night down yonder by Liggen, the little fishing village with the red-tiled roofs, we can see it up here from the window. A ship has come ashore. It has struck, and it is fast embedded in the sand. But the rugged apparatus has thrown a rope on board and formed a bridge from the wreck to the mainland, and all aboard are saved and reach the land and are wrapped in warm blankets, and today they are invited to the farm at the convent of Borglum. In comfortable rooms they encounter hospitality and friendly faces. They are addressed in the language of their country, and the piano sounds for them with melodies of their native land. And before these have died away, the chord has been struck. The wire of thoughts that reached to the land of the sufferers announces that they are rescued. Then their anxieties are dispelled, and at even they join in the dance at the feast given in the great hall of Borglum. Waltzes and Styrian dances are given, and Danish popular songs and melodies of foreign lands in these modern times. Blessed be thou, new time. Speak thou of summer and of purer gales. Send thy sunbeams gleaming into our hearts and thoughts. On thy glowing canvas let them be painted, the dark legend of the rough hard times that are past. this was a little hard to read for me. I hope you understood all of it. Yeah, I hope you liked this one, and I would like to know what you thought of it. It was quite bloody, wasn't it? Murder and all. But that is what his story was like, It is about stories that were told, around the country, and he just wrote them down. There were tales and everything. And he just wrote them down. Some of the stories he made himself, and some of them were, tales from old women and I don't know what. But yeah, I would like to know what you think about this fairy tale. And if you're new to my channel and you like this story and you would like to know what else I'm doing, please consider pushing the subscribe button down below. And next to it, there's a bell. Please ding it and choose all, and you'll be notified whenever I put up a new video. And yeah, don't forget to give me thumbs up before you leave. It really, really does help. And yeah. Then I hope I will see you in my next video. And I also hope to see you tomorrow in my live. I do lives every Sunday. And on Tuesdays I have my women chat. Then on Fridays I do an unboxing of some sorts. And Saturday is my fairy tale day. So yeah, I hope to see you tomorrow. And if not, on Tuesday. Bye everybody. Take care. Have a nice weekend. Bye.